Hi everyone, I'm Monique and I'm excited to be back sharing a new layout for you today that I've created for a lovely series over on Shu-Wen's YouTube channel called Stretch Your Stamps. Today we're going to be working with small sentiment stamps and trying to find lots of different ways to make use of them and to stretch them just a little bit further. Before I get started, I thought I'd show you a few of my projects where I've made use of small sentiment stamps. Here in my junk journal, I've used some small alphas along with the little smile sentiment stamp to create my title and used some different colors just to add a pop of something extra. And here in my Christmas journal, I've used the little Christmas sentiment stamp on a little wooden banner, as well as a different font Christmas stamp along with lots of different stamp alphas to create this lovely quote card in my cover page. I love the visual variety that you can create by using a variety of different fonts. Now here in this scrapbook layout, I've used a few little sentiment stamps on little tabs just to add some text to my layout. And on this colorful layout here, I've used a variety of sentiment stamps. I've done some double impressions using second generation inking, so I've stamped with ink and then just without re-inking I've just stamped it down again. I've also used multiple colors on top of each other and just done some tone-on-tone stamping to match the embellishments around the stamping. And now this layout is one I've created very recently. The entire background at the top there is made using a single sentiment stamp that says Holly Jolly, and I love how this has turned out, and the stamp just fits perfectly into each other to create a repeating pattern. It's actually available for free for the next couple of days over on scrapbook.com. I've linked it up below in case you're interested. And now this next layout is a similar idea, except I have used alphas here, but it could easily be done using a sentiment stamp, just repeatedly stamped to create an interesting background, and I've stamped that there on patterned paper. So those are just a few where I've used small sentiments, and now just to take a peek at some of my small sentiment stamps. I love these ones from scrapbook.com. There's so many lovely little sentiments that can be used every single day, and this little set from Elle's Studio, this is a spring set, but still there's some that I can use even though it is heading into the colder months. And I really discovered that I've actually got loads of little sentiment stamps from lots of different sets that I've got where I've never really noticed the text pieces before, but I've looked at them with new eyes. So I've just taken a quick look through to see what I've got and what I can use for my layout that I'm going to create. So today's project is going to be a scrapbook layout, and I've got these two cute photos from my children's and their besties' first day and last day in primary one, their first year of school, and I just really wanted to scrap those two photos together. I think they're so cute, and I cannot believe the difference in them during the space of a year. So I really wanted to capture that on a page. Now, I do want to make a title that says primary one, but I want my letters to be a little bit bigger than these lovely dies that I've got. So I'm just using the die as a little kind of a guide so that I can draw my letter around it, but slightly bigger. I'm drawing on the reverse side of the pattern paper just so I don't have to worry about rubbing out patterned lines or anything. So I'm going to do each letter in turn until I've got the entire word all in similar heights. They don't need to be perfect because I am going to be sticking them down slightly haphazardly, so it will be a little bit forgiving if they're not perfect, and I don't mind if they're not exactly right. So I've got those all drawn, and I'm just going to quickly cut them out. I'm not even going to worry to cut out those little centerpieces. I'm just going to draw them on, and it all works out. So I'm keeping it quite simple. This is a really simple way to create a title. If you don't have any thickers or alpha stickers that you like, or any dies that you are quite right, you could also print out some text using Word just in a mirror image, stick it onto the back of your pattern paper, and then cut out the letters as well. I've done that before as well. Now I do want the word one for primary one to be in a different font and slightly smaller, so I've used the lowercase dies from this set just to cut out the letters using this cute colouring pencil patterned paper, and I think that adds a nice little school theme to it, and it looks quite cute once it's all done. I feel that the title is a little bit lost. It needs a more defined border, so I take my black fine liner pen just to go around the edges. However, I don't love that. So while I'm doing this, I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to need to cut these letters out again. And but then I decide to keep going and see what it's like. And then in a moment, I'm going to bring in my gold pen and just go over that black line. I feel it softens the black line and adds a little bit of contrast between the black letters that are already on that patterned paper. I felt like the black line was kind of conflicting with the lines that were already there, and the gold pen is just the right amount of contrast, and yet it's also a bit softer than the harsh black lines. And I also love the touch of gold and that little bit of shimmer that the gold pen adds. Now to get stuck into some stamping. Now I really just want to find cute little sentiments that really match these photos and this cute friendship and starting school. So I've picked out a few. Some of them are best buds, 2 thumbs up, remember this, good stuff here, XOXO, and I'm just going to be stamping those repeatedly using a technique that I've never used before. However, I did test it out to see how best it would work, just to make sure that the idea I had in my mind would actually work. And I love how it turned out, so I hope you like it too. So what I've got here are some pops of color from scrapbook.com. They're a product that I've only recently started using, and I really like them. I love using them almost like a thin texture paste medium, and I just squirt it on and then give it a smear. In order for it to work properly, I need to make sure that it's quite thin. If it's too thick, when I stamp onto it, it's not going to go through to the white cardstock in the background. So I want it to be thin enough so that when I press down with my stamp, it kind of removes the color so that you see the white background, and it works quite well. However, once I've done this blue section, now part of where I'm stamping now, part of that is going to be covered by my title piece. So what I do going forward is I stamp from the very bottom of that color and then move up, because as I'm working along, those pops of color start to dry. They dry really quickly, so my stamped impressions at the bottom aren't quite as clear as those at the top, the ones that end up being covered up. So I learn as I go along, and but like I said, I really like the effect of this. I have used Vicky Bruton's foundations paper just because the pops of color are a wet medium and can make the paper warp a little bit, so I thought I would have a better effect if I used a more durable cardstock. You could also use regular white cardstock with some clear gesso on the top, just so that it can withstand a little bit of mixed media. Now I'm going to move on to do more of the rainbow colors. I'm going to just do 2 colors at a time, and I'm just trying to blend those colors a little bit so that they kind of smush into each other, creating a lovely rainbow that's going to be kind of bleeding out the bottom of my title. And then I'm just going to be repeating those exact same sentiments right along the bottom. So rather than it being a stamped image that is kind of drawing your eye to read it, it's more part of the background, creating a little bit of visual texture and interest, and on closer inspection you can read those sentiments that are all very relevant and purposeful for those photos. I did also try this technique using white texture paste. I used the Ranger Opaque Matte texture paste. However, you do need to smear it on very thinly, literally paper thin, and it works really nicely provided it's a very thin smear, and then that gives a nice impression for you to be able to add a little bit of mixed media on top of it. And then I can just imagine like watercolors or inks kind of just settling into the recesses of where you've stamped and giving a really nice textured look where you're still able to see that text. So that's another way where you can use this method as well. But if you're going to be stamping into texture paste or any of these wet mediums, please remember, just give your stamps a wash almost immediately, because it is a little bit more tricky to get these mediums off your stamps, especially in all those teeny tiny little crevices once they've dried. So make sure you give them a good clean in between each stamping like I'm doing. And then I kind of just, I got a little bit lazy at the end and I just dropped them in a cup of water just to try keep that medium wet so that I could go back in after a little while and wash them off properly. Now I do have some more stamping coming up, however I want that background to get dry, and in the meantime I'm going to just be matting my photos so that they're all ready to be stuck down. So I'm just flicking through this little 6x6 paper pad. It's from Rosie's studio. It's called Work of Heart, and it's a lovely collection for any school related or creative layouts, and I love the colors in this collection. So I've just taken out a few, and I'm starting off with one photo. I've decided to do a double mat, and I'm just cutting the pattern paper slightly bigger than my photo so that I can layer them on top of each other, and I'm just going to distress those edges just to add some lovely texture for a little bit of extra visual interest. Now I'm going to have those slightly offset and stick them down. I really like having them looking a little bit haphazard rather than having all the corners neat and straight together, but that's just my own style, and I'm sure at some point I'll go to a more straight style and like that. I think it's okay to change how you like things and to experiment and try different things, but this is what I'm loving at the moment. Now for this other photo I've opted for 2 blue shades of patterned paper because I've decided where I'm going to be placing the photos. I want the patterned papers to kind of match the rainbow that's at the bottom of my layout. So that photo that I'm working with now is going to be more on the left of my layout because that's the photo of my kids and their friends on their very first day of big school, and the second photo is their last day of primary 1, and you can see there how the colors of those pattern papers just tone in with the rainbow below it. Now I'm just going to lay my title out just to see how that all works, and I'm really happy with how that's looking. Now it's time to get embellishing, and I'm using some ephemera pieces from the same Rosie Studio collection, Work of Heart, and there are so many lovely little pieces in here, so I'm just really having a play and finding bits and pieces that I think will work best, and I end up going for a tone-on-tone embellishment method where I just pick embellishments that kind of match that rainbow. So I'm kind of extending the rainbow from the bottom of the page up to the top where I place the embellishments, and I really do love that effect where all the colors are kind of in that sequence. I love the rainbow sequence, it's my favorite. So why would I mess with that? I'm just going to keep the sequence in the right order, and I'm really spoiled for choice with all the bits and pieces here. I'm using some chipboard stickers as well, and I do bring in some puffy stickers as well, also from the same collection a little bit later. I've had these bits and pieces for a while, and I've just been waiting for the right project to use them, so today's the day. Can spend the longest time fiddling with all the different bits and pieces, finding the right place for them, trying to get the right balance, and I'm eventually happy, but I really do feel like I need to build that cluster up at the top just a little bit, just to bring some interest to the top of the page there. I've added a little purple pencil and little pencil sharpening to the bottom left side there. There's no purple in the layout, but that's where purple would be in the rainbow sequence, so I feel that is the right spot to add those. Now I'm strategically moving my embellishments off the page so I can start to stick things down, so I'm moving the embellishments kind of off in the direction of, you know, where they're placed so that I can remember where everything goes. And I've just cut 2 little squares of craft foam to stick on the back of my photos so that I can get those stuck down and start building this layout again, but getting everything stuck in place so that I can add a little bit more stamping. So once everything's stuck in place, I do add a few different types of small sentiment stamps, so stay tuned to see that. Now, as you will have seen, I've used some adhesive foam squares just to raise up my title so that it's also raised off the page, and I'm going to be using these thin little double-sided foam strips just to raise up that skinny little word 1 because I also want that to be raised. I want lots of lovely dimension. I really want that stamped rainbow background to be in the background. I think the colors kind of bring it forward so much that I want all the other embellishments to be, or most of them, to be slightly raised. Now that I know where all the embellishments are going to go, I want to do some some stamping, again in some rainbow colors. So I'm picking out some stamps that I think will work. So the first one I picked and showed you there said the story of this photo. Then that little circle one said Big Day. That's from Amy Tangerine's Picnic in the Park collection. And Big Day in my head, I always thought of weddings. However, your first day of school is a big day, so that's perfect. So I'm just testing out some of these stamps to see how they stamp. Some of them I've not used before. Some of them it's been a while before I've used them. I've also got a little stamp that's hashtag The Adventure Begins, which is also, again, perfect for starting school. So I've tested out the Big Day stamp, which I haven't ever used before, and I just gave it a few stamps just to get it working nicely, and then I'm going to go and stamp it around the dark blue part of the cluster at the top there. I want to use some second generation stamping, so I stamp it on my scrap of paper and then I stamp it a second time without adding ink over there by that little notebook. I'm just going to stick that down because now I want to do another stamping with full ink, but I want to stamp it over the embellishment just so that they're all kind of part of each other, if that makes sense. So I do a few second generation stampings over there just to add some color, extra color to that cluster using those stamps and just repeating stamping the same image. Now, as I'm going along, I'm just sticking the bits and pieces down. You will see me sticking things down and then pulling them off because I realize it's not going to be quite so easy to stamp things when I've got very dimensional items stuck down. So that little owl I stuck down using clear silicone glue, which is a very wet adhesive, but it's quite gel-like if you've never used it before. And it takes ages to dry. So I frequently use this and then go and squish the embellishments, squelching glue all over the show. So I do always need to remind myself to be careful, but I invariably make a mess. So there, I've taken it off because I want to stamp the little hashtag The Adventure Begins there, again using some first generation and second generation inkings and just kind of like stamping them over each other and in like a turquoisey blue to match the color from the bottom of the page. And now I've got the stamp that says Best Buds, which is just perfect for these happy friends, and I'm just stamping that in green around that little floral over there before moving on to a yellow stamp which says the story of this photo. And I think when you look at the layout, you don't look and say, oh, this says Big Day and The Adventure Begins and Best Buds. It's all just very subtle in the background. But as I said before, it's all very relevant to what's in the photo and helps tell the story of the photo. Now, I don't write journaling during this video, but it is something I will add later. And all those little sentiments that I've stamped will tie in with the journaling that I add to this layout. Now, you will see none of my stamping is perfect or precise. It's certainly not straight. It's definitely not inked perfectly, but I think that's the beauty of using second generation inkings. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect, because by stamping multiple times with the same inking, you're giving that effect of like the ink's running out and it's giving a bit of a distressed look about it and adding lots of visual texture. So it really is very forgiving if you don't stamp a perfect impression, and I really do love that aspect about it, because I very frequently stamp imperfect impressions. Now, these last little stamps I'm using just say love this, and I've done 2 colors of that to go over the red and the orange, and I was quite purposeful in choosing stamps for the stamping at the top of my page that were different fonts and slightly different sizes, and some on lowercase, some in caps, just for extra visual interest. Now I'm just going to be trying to get everything else stuck down and getting this layout finished. I sometimes find that the sticking down of all the embellishments can take longer than anything else, and it probably feels long for me because by the time I actually stick things down, I've taken everything on and off my page quite a few times. So as you will see, I'm using a variety of different adhesive mediums. I'm using a tape runner, I'm using silicone glue for extra dimension, I'm using foam adhesive squares of different thicknesses, and some wet glue as well. Now, I've got these little tabs that I've punched that I want to add in. I want to say first day and last day. Now, I don't have a teeny tiny number set, so I'm just using the one from my date stamp, and then I've stamped a S&T along with just the word day from that circular stamp that said big day. So what I've done is I've just carefully used the corner of my little black cube of ink just to very carefully only ink the word day on that stamp. And I really just love how that sentiment stamp can be used, the individual word can be used just to add a different font. So if you're using your alpha stamps, you can just incorporate a sentiment stamp in there just to add some extra visual interest by including a different font. Now, I've done that first day and last day, and now I'm just continuing with some embellishing. So I've got this puffy sticker of an apple, which again is great for a school layout. That's from the Field Notes collection, also from Rosie's studio, and just tucking that little clipboard in. And like I said before, I really just love a tone-on-tone embellishing when there's a rainbow involved. I love that sequence so much. So now I'm using my square ruler, and like I mentioned before, how I always make a mess with my silicone glue, that little pencil sharpening embellishment on the left is stuck with silicone glue, so I'm holding up my T-square ruler just so that it doesn't squish it down. And now I've just got a couple more pieces to add to the bottom right side of this layout underneath that little apple, a little banner piece that says have fun, and a little red crayon. And then I think I'm nearly done with the embellishing. I've got a couple lighter blue pieces I want to add between those photos, and a little green sharpener, and then the embellishing will be complete. I nearly forgot about this pencil pot, but it was just too cute not to include. So I've also got a little blue pencil and a paintbrush, which I just add to make that pencil pot a bit more full and to give it a little bit of extra height, and that works really nicely and adds some extra interest to the middle of the page. And then in a moment I'm going to add a little green sharpener between the M and the A. I do try a crayon and backpack as well, but it's just a little bit too much and not really necessary. So I decide to go for less is more, which is not usually the case for me, although I can't really call this layout a less is more layout. There's definitely more on this one. But now I'm going in with some cute little teeny tiny puffy stickers, and they've got some really cute bulldog clips in different colors, which are really cute to add to the little notes around the layout. And then I just want to add in a few little hearts in tone-on-tone colors to match that rainbow as well. I add 3 different colors of hearts. So I've got 2 little blue ones on the left, and then I'm going to add a little red one over there to the right, and then I want some green ones at the top there. But I need to go to another collection, some Elle Studio and some Doodlebug Design green hearts, just to make those little hearts at the top there. And I really like that little triangle of hearts that I've created across the page. Now, this stamp is from Paige Evans' Bloom Street collection, and I'm just kind of prepping that stamp a little bit by rubbing it out and stamping it a few times just to get a nice impression. However, I am using distress inks, and distress inks do give more of a distressed look in their impressions, which I do quite like. So I've stamped that onto some soft grid patterned paper. So there's just a light grid in the background, and I'm just going to be fussy cutting around that and adding that to my title so that it says Hello Primary 1. And I love that you can use little sentiment pieces like that just to extend a title and to add some extra text to your page. Now, to finish off, I just felt like I needed a little doodled border around the edge. Doodling always makes me think of school, and I feel just works so nicely with the school themed layout. So I just go around with my black pen. I'm not worried about straight lines. I kind of want them to be a little bit wibbly, so it's purposeful making them a bit wonky, and I go around twice. I really do like the effect of a double doodled border. And that is my layout complete. I really hope you've enjoyed watching this today and seeing some of my stamping techniques and ideas for stretching your small sentiment stamps. I've really enjoyed this and creating this layout, really just digging into my stamp stash and having a think about how to use my stamps differently. Please do take a look in the description box. I've linked up Shu-Wen's YouTube channel. She's Shu Puff Creations, and you will find her lovely Stretch Your Stamps series over there, as well as links to the other videos for this week's series on stretching your small sentiment stamps. If you'd like to find me on social media, you can find me on Instagram at Handmade Happy by Monique. Thank you so very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!